There is no excitement like the excitement of finding the higher kingdom. There is no thrill like the thrill of finding your own soul. Now, since that is true, and it is marvelously true, there's never again a need for you to be downcast, to be discouraged in your spiritual studies and work. The truth exists, always has, just like penicillin or America always existed before they were discovered. The truth exists, but in our vanity we think, if I don't know it now, it can't exist because I know everything there is to know. And so we forget the simple opportunity we have for the right excitement of seeking our own soul. The right excitement. Now I'll tell you what you're doing. I said there was no need for you to ever be downcast, gloomy, sad. There is no natural need for it. It's an unnatural need, which you take as false excitement. Yes, follow this. You are real excited when you're gloomy, when your eyes and spirit are downcast. You like it. It's an occupation. It is something to do, to feel, to get worried about. You're worried about being worried. And that way, you think you have guaranteed your existence here on earth, and you have not. You have guaranteed your non-existence. Now, all we have to do is see that we're taking false excitement and pushing away the true. Now, I'll give you an idea of what true excitement is. Another example of it. Dimly, it's not very bright, it's not a bright light, but dimly within you is a yearning for trueness. Because that yearning, as small as it is, senses that trueness is the only answer to everything. How many things bothered you already this morning? You also have sensing, feeling that there is an answer to it. There is. Truth exists, God exists. Find the answer. I'll give you an illustration. There's a movie that some of you probably saw. You see it on television quite often. Gunga Din. One of the old-fashioned, rousing adventure stories. It has everything. It's a movie well directed. The director of that must have had a checklist alongside him and said, I'm going to put everything in there. He even has a little humor. And has concealed spiritual and moral truths in it too. Gunga Din, a poem by Rudyard Kipling, is a water boy who accompanies the British troops when Britain ruled India. And Gunga Din was a very small, pathetic sort of man, young man. And he carried the water skin, the animal skin of water on his back, went around. The troops wanted water. He was the water boy. At the same time, he had a secret wish to be a soldier, a British soldier too. And he would get off by himself and practice rifle drill and marching around. And the soldiers would help him. The movie went on and on and on, and we'll get to the point of it. Toward the end, there was a great climactic scene. Now, how many have seen the movie? Remember? Gunga Din, with all famous actors and actresses in it. Toward the end, the British troops were trapped by the East Indian fanatics, who was the enemy of the British troops in the movie. Gunga Din was captured along with some other British soldiers and kept in a tower, and they were put up on the top of this tower. And it was a trap. The tower was a trap. These fanatics were surrounding the temple, the religious temple, waiting for the British troops to come through a pass, and when they came through the pass, they would be ambushed and destroyed. I'll get to the point. Follow the story. And because if you remember the story, you will remember the lesson. Gunga Din, although badly wounded, saw the British troops coming through the pass at a distance, walking right into the trap set by the forces of evil. And the movie went on with great direction and great drama for a movie. Hurt badly, but he took his bugle, his trumpet, put it over his back, and painfully, inch by inch, climbed up the top of the dome, where once he got up there, he knew he could raise the bugle to his lips and sound the sound that would warn the British troops that they were walking into a trap. On and up he climbed, and alternated course, showing the troops walking right to their destruction if they kept going. Not knowing they were walking to a trap. How many of you have had that experience? You didn't hear the bugle sound, did you? And you walked into it and you got hurt, you were ambushed. Then you did it again, right? And again, and again. Climax of the movie, Gunga Din finally got to the top, and he painfully put the bugle to his lips and sounded the blast, and the British heard it, immediately were alerted and dispersed and didn't walk into the trap. What about the lesson in that? What are we talking about? Why did I tell you this story? I'll tell you why I tell you the story. Because when you see a scene like that, or read a novel or whatever, there's something in you that gets excited about it. There is something in you that wants truth to win, that wants rightness to win. That's the point. There is dimly hidden inside of you, as New Life students, the wish for truth to triumph after all. You don't know how it's going to be done, how it's going to come about. Now, I'll tell you how it's going to come about. You're going to have to let the bugle sound, spiritually speaking. You hear that, and you stop in the tracks of where you're going in life. You hear that, and you get real excited because you know it's the sound of truth. It isn't like you. And you know your faults, and you can automatically compare your life with the bugle call, the rescuing bugle call. You can compare the two, and because you know what is wrong, you automatically know what is right. Then, that releases, that right excitement. This is a horrible world to live in, and it's getting worse all the time. This is you talking. And I can't do anything about it. I'm helpless. I'm hopeless. I sense the answer is spiritual. But look, I won against the 5 billion. I can't go out and sound the trumpet to them. They're the enemy. They don't want to hear anything against their own side. So you feel trapped, hopelessly trapped. The bugle call sounds, the bugle call of rightness, and you change your thinking. And it suddenly occurs to you that you have no business trying to save the world. I am telling you that there exists, very small, very weak inside of you, the wish for truth to triumph. But you have to know what that means. And I'll tell you what it means. When you have the feeling that you want truth to win, I want you to always remember that means for you, sir, and you, miss, and you, missus, it means for you personally to win. Your aim is to take a certain explanation, a simple one I just gave you, and let it grow. Put yourself on its side, not on the side of your false imaginary nature. And what I told you is that there's a dim recognition in you that right is right. All right, I'll make it final once and for all. This is it. Right is right and nothing else is. Not your definition of trueness, but right itself. What it is, not what you call it. I said there's no need for you to be downcast by anything, and being downcast becomes one of your false thrills. There's no need for you to be gloomy, scared about giving up everything. I know that's vague. I know you can't quite put that in a place inside your mind, but it's okay. There's no need to be sad about abandoning your whole life. Because all you have to do is to say, yes, yes, God, I will do it, and then it's out of your hands. That's the trouble. You get in an automobile. You don't sit there for a minute and then get out and stand alongside on the street and try to push it. You let the automobile drive you along. This is what you're doing. You're seated in the car and you say, how can I make it go? Well, I've got a body, I'll get out and I'll push the car. I guess that's the way an automobile operates. That would be mad, wouldn't it? You're doing that with your life. Think spiritually with me right now. If you're saying this, if I abandon all in order to increase the trumpet sound of rightness and of warning, if I abandon everything I am, then I am no longer in the picture, and I am no longer responsible for what happens after I abandon my superficial, artificial personality. Oh, I've got it. I am no longer responsible once I give up and say, God, you do it, I can't. Matter of fact, God, I have the slightest notion of what I'm talking about when I'm asking you to help me. You don't have to know. You're not supposed to know right now. You will know one day. All right. Very simple explanation. Just now, there is you and there is God. And never the twain shall meet. You don't like God at all. You're on the wrong side, the enemy side of God. But you've been told you can recognize the position you're in. You're on the downhill side. You can recognize that and not like being there. And the evidence is overwhelming. You're afraid of your own nature. You fear greatly the very nature you're trying to protect. You're afraid of yourself. You're afraid of yourself, aren't you? You don't know what you're going to do next. There's a madman working in there somewhere, and he's always saying the wrong things. Always shaky and jittery. Okay. If I abandon my known life, then all responsibility for what comes next is not mine. But the fear of losing yourself is so strong. You say you let go, but you don't do it. You talk about dedicating your life to truth, but you don't do it. The test of whether you're willing to abandon everything that you now are in order to gain everything new and true and heavenly, the test is whether you suddenly come to a stop inside yourself and remain in that stop position without trying to change it. Because if you try to change it, like telling yourself how spiritual you are or how generous you've always been, if you try to change it, God can't come in because you're occupying the space. This is the silence, the spiritual silence that spiritual books talk about. This is the quietness. This is the refusal to raise a hand to try to save your troubled self. Did you hear that? You don't do anything to help yourself, improve yourself, to be a better person. You don't do anything. You now know that you can't and must not do anything, or you'll just recreate you and everything that goes with it. Everything wrong that goes with it. What's the matter with me that I want to be a pained human being? What's wrong with it? I didn't know that for all my life, that I was stupid. I stupidly liked hating people. In my enormous ignorance, I loved being afraid of the next stupid thing I was going to do, and I did it. I never disappointed myself. I always lived up to my own expectations. Now I know why. I wanted to blab. I wanted to be a Mr. Blabby Crabby. Mrs. Blabby Crabby. That's right. And don't you dare level the slightest accusation at a right person like me. You call it blabby crabby, I call it disseminating spiritual and practical information to an eagerly awaiting world. Oh, I never dreamed it would ever come to this. I never knew how close the answer was, but now I do. In order to be saved, I just have to keep my big mouth shut. Yeah. Now, I see some of you people. I have to speak a little personal here with some of you. I see some of you who are affectionately known as the strong and silent type. And I'm seated across the table from you, and I know why you're silent. Because you're a suppressed vocal volcano. And you don't want to say anything dumb. So you play it safe. All right. That means, just because you're silent when with other people, doesn't mean you're silent inside, of course. So you have to know, this is the easiest lesson you've ever been given. You have to know that you're always talking inwardly to yourself, giving yourself advice, telling yourself what a marvelous hero or heroine you are, giving yourself hope and encouragement for a better day tomorrow. Now look, going mentally silent simply means you have been willing to let the verbal personality, the wordy personality vanish. Allow the sunshine to dissolve the clouds which seem to make up your form and self. It means you're no longer going to talk yourself into being real, into existing. No longer able to trust yourself. You take the gigantic upward leap into trusting God. Now, the first 1,000 times you do that, you're going to be terrified. Because it's the same old, tenacious, terrible self wailing out in protest and screaming out, well, if I'm not me, who will I be? That's a neurotic poem. If I'm not me, who will I be? The poem of the neurotic. Get it down. Who said that? See? Now, I heard what you said about going quiet, about not blabbing internally all the time. I heard that. But I'm concerned because I don't have a guarantee that I will exist on the other side of me, the present me. Even a store gives you a 30-day guarantee on something you buy. We're so used to guarantees, assurances that the product we buy will be worthy. All the time, don't forget ever what you'll hear next. It'll knock out the false fear you have of becoming new and true. During all the process of you slowing down your mind, quieting your mind, not seeking your own answers from your own neurotic nature, and you become quieter and quieter and quieter, and you finally get to the point where you know that it's God only, not you and God. Truth alone, not you and truth. Out the window goes all your religious doctrines and dogmas, and you might as well throw them all out right now. I said, I'll spell the word, Knower. All the time, and it's starting now. It is, because you have a little bit of the knower in you. It will grow and grow and grow. It will be apart from everything that is marvelously happening inside of you because you've allowed God to let it happen. And it's a series of observations, of jolts, of recoveries, all growing in stronger force inside of you because, as I said before, that little part of you that wants right to win is now growing. The knower and the growing of the part that wants right to win, they're really the same thing. We have to use words to describe these. The knower, capital K, kingdom of the knower, that never gets you into trouble. That always gets you out of trouble. You start thinking of your own solutions to that relationship problem you have with spouse, friend, boss. The thought will come to you, how can I solve this? The knower says, uh-oh, there you go again. You creating a difficulty and creating an equally stupid solution. You create it because you don't love God enough yet. You love you more than anything yet. See, the knower is your friend. That's, of course, it's a part of the spiritual kingdom. It's the bugle blast that warns you that the enemy is about to ambush you. You hear it. You know it. Now, the knower is alive 24 hours a day. It has always been alive through the trillions of past years, trillions of future years. The knower is alive right now here in this room. I told you it was little. But you have to realize that everything you've ever done in your life to make yourself happy and secure and feel good and feel nice and feel strong, everything you've done has flopped. Then you have to watch, and the knower will be the watcher for you. You have to watch oh look, I'm going to say 10,000, but it's really a million. You have to watch the thousands of artificial lives and excitements and thrills that the dark forces give you in order to prevent you from attaining everlasting life. That is one of the single most subjects you must ever think about in your studies as a spiritual student. Something, I'll put it right to you, something is always tricking you without your awareness. And you can never be aware of it. How about inviting the knower in to do its thinking for you, its seeing for you, so that the next time you ask yourself, what am I going to do with that shock I had with that other person? Everything was going great, and it suddenly blew up. Instead of going into the proper facial expression for the matter and feeling sad over yourself, you'll catch yourself right in the middle of you going back to yourself instead of going toward God and the knower. You'll catch yourself right in the middle of it, and you say this: here is where I stop. Here's where I stop interfering with the knower, with the truth, with the healing force. Here's where I stop interfering with God's wish and plan to save me. And you stop, you go silent right there. When you go silent, you'll know what spiritual silence really is. And I'll tell you what it is. Spiritual silence is everything that little part of rightness in you wants. That little feeling can be expanded 10,000 times. Final thought. Discover where you do not love truth. Discover that. Then ask God to show you how to love Him more than this world. Your prayer will be answered, and you will be new. A little sparrow is born into its nest up in the tree, and for a while it is helpless and has to depend on its parents to bring it food. And that condition exists for a while. Then the sparrow grows up a little bit, gets to looking around a little better, gets to seeing the kind of world he's in, and gets his first shock. Grows more and more and more. Parents feed it less and less and less. Sparrow naturally matures according to its sparrow nature, and the time comes when it leaves the nest for a little bit, a short exploratory flight around the neighborhood, but it soon comes back to the nest and is fed again. Next flight is a little longer, a little longer, a little longer. And pretty soon, because the way nature has made a sparrow, it will, of its own sparrow-like nature, not want to go back to the nest eventually, will strike out on its own, become a sparrow in a treetop. And no more dependency on the infantile ways that it had properly in its early life. This is the way the animal and bird world operates. Human beings are born into this world helpless. Parents take care of them for a long time, teach them how to walk, how to dress themselves. And the child grows up from 2 feet tall to 3 feet and on up. The child matures physically. His mind expands. He begins to see the world, and he gets his first shocks at the kind of world he's in. He sees those. When he was 2 years old, he was with his father down in a grocery store, and outside as he went in, a couple were quarreling. That registered on that little child's mind. The child grows up, he's 18, 20, and 30, and on. But in the sparrow's case, it was natural for him to grow from a little infant sparrow to an adult sparrow and on his own. In a human being, the same rule applies only to the physical and to the mental. Few human beings ever have the kind of experience that will change them from a mental human being to a spiritual one. A sparrow has no choice at all in what happens to him. A sparrow has no self-awareness. He can't be conscious of himself as a sparrow. He doesn't know the difference between him being a sparrow and a horse or a cow. Human beings are different. Human beings are given the power to agree to continue to grow in an unusual direction for an unusual, marvelous reward. And mark that phrase well. Unlike sparrows, human beings can agree to outgrow their infantile state and even their physically mature state to find what is beyond what nature gives you automatically, which is growth up into physical maturity and the collection of knowledge in your mind. I'm going to build up to that point with some other facts, but just for now, I want to approach it so that we go logically from one point to another. So I have to ask you now, how many of you were an unwanted child? How many of you now know the reason for it? There is something very interesting to look at. And here it is. You may not have been wanted as a child and felt that very often. But I'm telling you, and you will see later in the talk, truly something is looking for you, wanting you, in order to give you something so marvelous words can't explain it. You were a wanted human being. Now, that will mean nothing unless you've got a glimpse of the hostile world and question the hostility and want to grow yourself beyond your own hostility. Something which is God Himself, which is spiritual health, wants to get through to you. It wants to get your attention. Who do you know who wants the attention of God? No, They want to put their attention on the only thing that interests them, which is the boat down at the lake, or the package of demands they have. Here's the question to this point. How do we allow what is seeking us to find us? Reality wants to make itself known to you. But you have to cooperate with it. You have to study who and what you are, moment by moment, no matter what you're doing. What earthly activity is compellingly important to, so important that you don't give your interest and attention to becoming acquainted with what's going on in your inner world? Think of it. Think of the half dozen enticing, unfortunately, enticing thoughts. What do you think about all the time? What do you feel all the time? You've got to learn to be a dismisser of what is blocking your receptivity, your spiritual hearing. You've got to dismiss the noise that is preventing you from hearing the call that says, whispers at the start, "Sir, miss, here is something different." Here's a beach town right half a mile from the ocean. You can walk on down to the big Pacific Ocean. This town, small town, 10,000 people. And we're going to talk about two different couples in it. And you're going to understand yourself by understanding the story and the lessons in back of it. One home, nice little modest place, has a father and mother, 2 children. And now it's the weekend. Now, unfortunately, these parents don't know about New Life Foundation. They don't know anything except the values of this world, and all they talk about is whether he should move to another place of employment, or whether she should maybe go to work, or what about the children. Are you able to break into this talk right now while I'm talking and know that there really are 2 worlds, one false and one real? Now, we're not saying the physical world is false. We're saying the world in which the only thing you have is earthly discussions about earthly problems. Are you aware that there is that world and another one? At the end of this talk, if you're receptive, something will break through to you to explain what I've just explained to you. Well, it's a weekend, and as far as they're concerned, the purpose of life is to go out and you have to make a living during the 5 weekdays, but then Saturday and Sunday you get to have fun. Well, in the first place, of course, Mr. and Mrs. Small Town residents Why didn't you have fun the other 5 days? You could have had. So they decided we're going to go down to the beach. So Papa got the fishing equipment and Mama got the basket, picnic basket, and the blanket to put out in the sand. She wasn't interested in fishing, and the two children weren't either. So Papa went out at the end of the pier, threw his line down to the ocean, looked down at the green, foamy water surging against the pillars, pilings on the pier. And he sat there and fished. First of all, isn't it awful having a good time? Not only that, to make it worse, he caught 10 fish, 9 mackerels, and 1 barracuda. See, I like to make it these concrete examples. 9 mackerel. Barracuda are considered a little higher quality than mackerel, by the way. You didn't know that, did you? And now remember, we've got Papa at the end of the pier there. Mama and the 2 children are down on the beach, fairly near him. He could look down and see them. They can see him up there. And the children are splashing in the waves, and Mama is on her swimsuit, and she's splashing around the water and keeping an eye on the children, make sure they don't go out too far. Now, we're talking about psychology. We covered sparrow psychology. Now we're talking about human psychology. Papa's out at the end of the pier. Ooh, this is what the travel folder said. You come to this beach and live there, you have fun all the time. That's still in his mind. And he can't figure what I just explained to you. Can't figure it out. If I'm supposed to be happy and content and feel fulfilled, how come I don't feel happy and content and fulfilled? There's something wrong somewhere. Now I'm going to tell you what's happening spiritually. There's great activity going on in heaven. And our veteran angel and apprentice angel are part of that activity. And these 2 friendly angels whom we've met before, it is their duty to try to help men and women. And in this case, they saw the couple. Oh, by the way, their health was fine. His income was good. He might get a raise next week. Everything's fine on the social, earthly level. But as he stood out there, the angels working real hard. Oh, if you knew how hard truth works for you. Periodically, the 2 angels would send a spirit. He sensed, he knew way, way down inside, he knew that something was trying to tell him something, but he didn't know what it was. He didn't understand it. And you know how when we don't understand something, because we're lazy, we want to push it away and hope that it'll go away if we ignore it. That's what he did. Something was trying to get through to give him a soul, and he didn't want it. His wife now, switch to the wife. She's splashing around the water. She can remember when she was a high school girl a few years earlier. And she thought how nice it would be to have a husband and children and a little home somewhere where she could just take care of the children and lead what you call a normal, happy life. She did it. She's got a husband. He was a reasonably nice man. Children were nice. Home was 3/4 paid for. 2 more years, mortgage gone. Yeah, her high school girl dreams had come true. Oh, she's splashing around the water, and for a minute she could take her attention off the children and kicking through the water and feeling the foam on her legs. The angels were busy with her too. They were trying to tell her, and let's simplify the message to the lady, there is something different. Would you please stop thinking long enough for this message to get through? Heaven was trying to get through to her earth. But she both loved and feared the earth so much that she couldn't hear. Now, we're going to leave them now, right at that stage, and we're going to go half mile into town to another home. You see, that village is the whole world. I'm describing you and the whole world. Another nice little cottage home, beach home. Retired senior citizens lived in this one. And this is the same weekend, he was sitting out on the front porch reading a magazine from one of the organizations he belonged with. Once a month, magazine came to him. Oh, yes, and he was sitting out there reading the magazine, half reading it. And you'll understand what I'm going to say next. He bought the subscription, and it comes, now he has to read it. See? You understood that, didn't you? Because you've done the same thing. He figures that if he bores himself by reading it, he's got his money's worth. He didn't waste the money. And he'll renew the subscription because, in his own distorted thinking, that renews my life. I keep myself going. The old army buddies, the old labor union buddies, whatever the magazine was all about. He's sitting there. Now look, listen. He has no consciousness of how lonely and sick and scared and worried and lost he is. I said, that is his condition. He has no knowledge of it at all. You know why? Because since he was a little boy even, the angels were working on it and trying to tell him what kind of a world he had entered so that something could come along, which I'll get to later, which would make him see that he's lonely. But everything requires a decision. Everything requires making up my mind as to what I want to do, but I'm afraid whatever I do, it's going to be wrong for me. He didn't see that. All that was happening to him is that the suffering was underground. And right while I was reading that magazine, the angel sent a spiritual sparkle down to him, trying to tell him that he didn't have to continue to live like that. Oh, when that voice tried to get through to him, he immediately rebelled. When I left the fisherman and the mother with her children, and we left the retired senior citizen out on the porch, now let's go to his wife. Same thing. She's in her 60s. And all the experiences that a person would have in all those years. And do you know, in her 60 plus years, do you know what is horrible? She has never found something true and right to do with herself. Getting married isn't finding a higher thing to do with yourself. It's a social thing. Having her children, she's a grandmother. She hasn't found something that will occupy her mind rightly and with a real reward. The angels were trying to get through to her, and she blocked them out. When she was single, now that she's married, she's been blocking them out too. Now listen. When you don't know what to do with yourself, in order to convince yourself that you do know what to do with yourself, you invent something. And then you become bored and hateful. All because you haven't listened to what's trying to get through to you. Do you know what she did? You know, they had their little, Mr. and Mrs. Senior Citizen had their little retired routine. Everything just right. They had their programs marked in the TV guide. And on the weekend, they usually had a little dinner, a little lighter than usual on Saturday. 6 p.m. Then they went to TV. Look, your routines are boring you. Your settled, secure life is driving you crazy. How many are pretty far gone already? Okay. You know what she thought? This is so typical. I'm describing the world, your neighbors, everybody's neighbors. They had dinner at 6 o'clock. Well, they, lived simply. They didn't cook much or kept it easy. They didn't want to do a lot of work. When you were younger, yes, a lot of work. Now just throw something on, throw the bread and chunky peanut butter on the table. I'll tell you something. They've got something even better than chunky peanut butter. They have super, super chunky peanut butter. And I've got some in my house. I'm going to throw it on the table tonight. Now look, how long does it take to throw the rye bread and the chunky peanut butter on the table? 5 minutes, right? It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You're following me. You're understanding what I'm trying to tell you. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, she doesn't want to do it herself. She doesn't want to go out and talk with her husband. She's been blabbing to him for 40 years. But she finally thought of what she could give herself something to do. Which is 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they dine at 6. What she's going to do is take 3 hours to throw the peanut butter on the table. Yes. So very slowly she walks to the cupboard, takes the peanut butter down. It takes 5 minutes to unscrew the jar, the lid, and put it on. What I'm saying is this. When you're not doing the right thing internally, you will always do ridiculous things outwardly. All the time, those 4 people, all during the weekend too, all the time, something was trying to break through to tell them that there's something higher than this boredom, than this lost condition. The husband out on the end of the pier, he's thinking about carrying the fish down and showing it to his wife and children, being the hero. He's thinking about that. And then he thinks, so this is a procedure for you to follow, he thinks of how many similar ideals and little plans that he's had over the years in order to make himself feel good. Bringing the fish down and showing it to my wife and her being proud of me, and the children crowding on, "Oh, Daddy, you're smarter than fish." He thinks of 1,000, 10,000 times he thought in a similar way. That is, he wanted to impress someone. Why does he want to impress someone? Because he wants to believe that the feeling he has over impressing someone is life, is real, and it's going to last. It isn't going to last, but he's going to tell himself it's going to last. He's seated out there in his chair, and for a moment, the fish are out of his mind, just a little bit passive. And at that moment, the 2 angels from heaven working on his personal case, having been assigned by heaven to him, At that time, they send a spiritual sparkle down, trying to tell him really, fundamentally, one thing. Sir, you were lost. You were stuck on the level of this life. The message comes down. It's not going to do you any good to take those fish and take them over and get the praise of your wife and children. It's not going to do you any good because it's not going to last. And you know it. You've had 1,000 approvals from others. Don't you want something that will last beyond this life? Now he can respond. You know, that's right. I've been doing this. My whole life has been trying to make people like me, trying to collect friends. And why did I do that? Because I wanted to feel that I was real. Little by little, he will break the barrier that most people have. The sparrow grows up into a sparrow mechanically, intuitively, instinctively. Something has to happen to you that will jolt you and give you the extra push by which you break away from this life, break away from yourself. You've been told how to break through yourself. The voice of telling you what to do, how to do it is coming down right now. And it'll come down when you walk out the door. It'll come down all the time, day in and out. You will listen to the voice that says something is false. See what is false in you. After you see it clearly, as an absolute guarantee, what is true will then come to you. We honor those historical heroes who turn life from the ordinary to the superordinary. We honor Bell, who made it possible to talk across the nation instead of screaming across the street, or Edison, who made it possible to replace the candle with the electric light. Those are good discoveries outwardly, which, by the way, when they were discovered, did not raise the level of consciousness or happiness 1 inch, did not raise it 1 inch in those who had telephones for the first time or electric lights for the first time. Now put the idea of something new and extraordinary, put that inside yourself and discover what must be done in order to replace your present unnatural life with what is authentically natural because it is spiritual. There is always a perfect start for making this inner discovery, and we'll talk about it. And while I'm talking, you must find work for yourself to do. And if you discover just a little bit of work, you'll find more work and more and more, until to your great pleasure, every day is packed with very, very difficult but very, very rewarding things to do. Here is what you're going to start to do right now during the talk. You are to catch yourself behaving in an artificial manner. You're to catch yourself red-handed in the act of thinking, saying, feeling, reacting with something that you recognize you picked up from someone somewhere else. You're to know that while you're listening here this morning, that you don't even have your own reactions. You heard what you should say in response to a truth talk, maybe. You heard from yourself, a wrong part of you, and from other people, that you should be wary of anything that seems to disturb you. You're going to know that you have no original, that is, naturally truthful reaction to what you're hearing. And you're to identify the villain, which is this artificial nature which has kept you in chains so long. You've heard the phrase sailing under artificial colors. That probably came back from sailing boat days a couple hundred years ago and earlier, where a pirate ship would put up a flag of a known country and sail along under false colors, false flag, in order to lure the cargo ship close, and when they got close enough, the pirates would jump out and plunder the innocent ship. Here's the point. Sailing under false colors, using comfortable cliches, because you don't want to even learn to think and speak from yourself, sailing under false colors has made it necessary for you to always sail the seas of life with one eye on the loot ship and another eye out for the warship that's coming to intercept you and catch you in the act. Now you know how to apply in a practical way the lesson that you must allow yourself to get caught in the act. Notice that your 24 hours is filled with apprehension, nervousness. You keep your eyes and ears roving around because you know that your colors are artificial, and you also know that Judgment Day is sailing in that warship and could appear at any minute to expose you as a person of artificiality, and then you fear that you won't know what to do next. Did you catch that point? What a maze of contradictions and darkness we have within. We're anxious that we might get caught, and that's bad enough. Get caught and sent to jail, punished, fined, that's bad enough. But our anxiety is much deeper than fearing those punishments. The anxiety is, if I lose the present artificial false colors that I have, what colors will I sail under? I've got to have some kind of a name. I've got to be recognized as something or someone by all the other ships going back and forth on the ocean of life. I can't just be here in this boat and not have a plan, a purpose, a destination. I can't do that. You said that. Reality did not. Who told you that you're supposed to make the rules of oceanic navigation? Whoever told you that you're supposed to originate the compass, the course, the action, the purpose?
Where did you pick up the notion that you're capable of charting the course and recording in the log? Where did you pick up the notion that you're responsible for that and so you better get hot? Well, where you picked it up is from living in this world where the ocean is filled with nothing but pirate ships doing the same thing. And so you imitate. Everybody's doing it. I better do it too. And it gets so heavily imprinted on our minds that what he does is the right thing for me to do. Her course is the right course for me. It gets to be such a weight. We think it's right, but it's simply a weight. It gets so impressed on our minds that we lose the ability to think in any other way than that of imitation, of getting excitement out of doing what we wrongly think we must do. We think we must do it, but it's wrong. Here's where you suddenly change course in mid-ocean. Here's where you know that if you continue looting life, that you will have to continue looking left and right and backward and forward on your pirate ship, always under the worry that you're going to get caught. Why do you worry about getting caught? First, because you know it's going to happen, and secondly, because it happens all the time. The exposure of you flying a false flag while really being a pirate vessel bent on loot. The fear of exposure is after you all the time because you have a sensing of the mechanical law that says if you get caught and punished once and then don't change things, you will get caught and punished again. That's why the fear is so all pounding within you. So now we come to that very important decision, which is, who said you had to invent your own way, which includes self-punishment? Sanity never said that. Goodness never forced the pirate life on you. You looked and you saw the mad excitement and exhilaration of friends and neighbors and strangers and people in public places. You saw them bringing back the loot from the other ship that they lured, the gold, the silver, the glory, the excitement. You saw them with boxes full of loot in their home. You don't have a luxurious home like that. You don't have heavy mail. That man down the street, you were going by his house, walking by his house, just as he happened to go up to his mailbox and open it. He had so much mail he had to bring a little box out in order to, one at a time, get all that mail. And you could see a lot of it was first class. He put it in his box. Oh, what are you smiling about? How many are lucky to get a postcard a week? The green-eyed monster called two green-eyed monsters. One called comparison, the other called envy. Now let me tell you what happens to that man who gets 50 letters just one day. Tomorrow's going to get one. Do you know what? He takes that. He takes it in the house, and he is the slave of every one of them. He got himself into that. Years ago, he saw himself only get one postcard a week. And he saw someone else getting 50 letters, all first class. He said, I want to go first class in life, not fourth class. So he did things. He looted. He became a pirate ship with false colors. And he got the rewards, the luxuries. He got all these things. He got the life he wanted. Now he's stuck with it. Time for you to do the exercise of seeing that you're leading an imposture, artificial life. Ooh, this is great. Write it down. Don't fail to use it. What person, possession, activity, so-called exciting set of thoughts do you have that you are stuck with? Find out they are there by the shipload full. You've got a whole cargo of them. But you still are in that unhappy position where you have to pretend that it's legal loot, that it's something that you've always wanted. And now that you've got it, your ship is so loaded with it, it's wobbly in the water. You can see the deck slanted with all that load that you have to carry around with you as you sail the ocean. Did you get the exercise? How about, I'll name a few. How about excessive talking? How about thinking about past events that seem to give you a little bit of a revival of pleasure? How about future plans? All this is you sailing under false colors in order to get the loot, in order to get the letters, and now you have to undo what you have done. And I gave you some clues on that, and I'll give you some more. When you, by looting life, have the 50 letters a day and have all the people around you and have the extra nice home with the jacuzzi or whatever you call it. How do I know how to pronounce those things? All I know is that there's bubbly water. Bubbly water, you can do that in a glass and save yourself a lot of work. Here is the question you will write down. Now that I've got it, what am I going to do with it? If I hadn't been so foolish 5 years ago, 10 years ago, in building fame, fortune, acquisition, if I hadn't been so foolish, I wouldn't feel so bad now. Why didn't you think of that at the start? Why didn't you know human nature? Why didn't you look at the furrowed face? I thought of that phrase and thought I'd use it. Furrowed face. That means careworn, lined with worry over the years. Why didn't you look at the forlorn face of your neighbor down the street at the precise moment of getting those 50 letters? Years ago, he'd walk down from his house and He didn't have a box yet, didn't need one yet, but he was hoping that the contents would be increased from 3 letters to 6. 100% in one day would be pretty good advancement, right? He'd be so delighted. One day, he thought he was going to 6 and he had 7. Oh, a bonus letter. It's all gone. And if you could have seen him when he first started to get excited, you would also be able later on to see him walking down. Now he's got a box to carry, and that's not light. He's got a heavy box of all this mail to carry back. Now he would rather, this is all unconscious in him, he would rather spend Saturday afternoon doing something good, pleasurable. He doesn't know what that is, but he does know one thing. He doesn't want to spend Saturday afternoon sorting that mail. Every one of them is a decision. I've set myself up as the man who knows the solution to all these financial problems. And a lot of people write me, how can I solve my financial, social, or whatever problem? I sailed under false colors and told them I could help them out at a fee, of course, with some loot, of course. Now I have to spend, the mail comes at 1 in the afternoon, and I know from past experiences I've got to get it back. I've got their money now. I have to get something of value back to them. Look what I'm stuck with. Find your similar situation. And sense that you do have, thank heaven, you still have left a yearning to be rid of all the illegally acquired loot, because you know as long as you keep it, and you keep it coming in, you're going to have to spend your afternoon all by yourself, paying the price, being punished for your looting of the vessels out there. When you get rid of your ill-gotten gains, oh, life is so happy. You can do what you want to do on Saturday afternoon. All right. Make it your spiritual aim to arrive at that sailing position on the ocean where the very idea of punishment, of going to hell, of being caught, exposed, make it your aim to arrive at the position where all that is gone. I tell you, it will go. Now, you are trembling under the fear of punishment simply because you're still a pirate ship, false color. When you haul down the pirate flag and are willing to sail without having any self-given directions or destinations, pull down the pirate flag and no longer advise yourself where you should go, what you should do, like getting 50 letters or getting gold and silver. When you do that, the spiritual miracle occurs to you, which is that while you're physically at the wheel of the ship of your life, you go around and conduct your normal affairs. At the same time that you have your hand on the wheel, on the helm, whereas you used to jerk it to the right, starboard or whatever it is, you used to do that because that prey over there looked like they might have a lot of spices from India on it, and the spices are very valuable. You used to jerk the wheel over that way to go do your evil deeds, or you'd pull it quickly to the other direction in order to catch another off-guard, gullible ship. And believe me, To be gullible is to be evil. I want you to know that. Get this. To be gullible is to be evil. You're evil if you're gullible. Innocence is awake on side avenue. Here, we have to come back again. To your marvelous delight, one day, this will happen to you. I assure you it will happen if you're faithful to what you should be faithful to, which is giving up being a pirate. You're holding the wheel, and you have so weakened evil in yourself, in your heart, that even your eyes are not peering out. Notice how evil peers. Look at people where at the racetrack at peering down at the numbers. My horse is going to win today. Evil peers. Goodness sees. No longer looking around for the next attack to make. You'll be delightfully stunned at a certain point where instead of you moving the wheel moves you. And if the wheel moves you, the wheel moves the entire vessel, right? You decided years ago that your destination was to roam the stormy seas and collect all the things you could possibly get in order to take away your aching emptiness. You decided on your own course, destination, direction. You decided what you wanted to do with your life. One day, it occurred to you that the boat was getting below the plimsoll line, the danger line. And you thought you'd better take your attention off of getting more loot to see what your previously acquired loot was doing to you. It was putting you lower and lower in the ocean. And you could hear the thumps of all that cargo shifting back and forth. Unfortunately, you still had retained a sense of danger. A person who loses a sense of danger is going to go down. You hang on to your sense of being in a hazardous position. Feeling that something was wrong, you understand that you can't any longer look out there to try to grab what you want to grab. You'd better pay attention to what's happening to your life. Take a reckoning of where you are and the condition of your boat right now. That is what leads to the magic where you have relaxed trying to get something for yourself, and there's nothing to get for yourself because there's no self to get and maintain and hold anything. All human game is pointless, useless, and one day you're going to lose it all. Now, the beauty of giving up the pirate search is that you lose all the punishments and the worries that go with it. Now, I'm describing to you from now on what it authentically means to have a spiritual way of life. You have given up your will to God's will, and you have your hand on the wheel, the pirate flag having come down. You have your hand on the wheel simply to follow its leadings, its impulses. And that in itself supplies you with a new marvel. You originally thought the marvel of having the whole world to go after, I'll at least get my share of it. I'm going to get mine. That's lunacy beyond description. The The new marvel is, first you've seen that you don't have to define marvel in your own mind, like getting all the gold and the letters. But secondly, the marvel of being under the command of the Supreme Commander, who for all these years wanted to take over your boat and show you the way to harbor. Your yielding to the higher guidance then gives you something new. The fear of losing your hard-won, brutally won gold and silver. Your fear of losing that disappears because you've given it up. No longer value it. You don't scour the seas with a knife blade between your teeth anymore, ready to leap and rob. That is gone, and to your astonishment, we could use a bunch of words here, astonishment and delight, you discover that if you had done 20 years ago what you're doing now, you could have had the reward. Because now, instead of sinking and losing everything, every day you know that God is guiding the wheel and therefore the rudder, and will keep the breezes in the sails. You know that the Supreme Admiral of the universe is in charge of your life, and that's all you ever need to know. And you know how easy it's going to be from now on just to stand there in that position. To not try to turn the wheel in your way, but to feel the wheel turn of itself. Do this, and every day you get closer and closer to harbor. That means you get closer and closer to full knowledge of what it means to lead a spiritual life. What you have, that understanding of all this that you have right now in this room right now, that is what you have forever. Good morning.
Please go on to tape C.